Hey guys, and Happy New Year wherever you are in the world. So what I thought I would do is a little like what I've done with my keying course recently, where I kind of just updated it with a new D-spill technique I use. I thought I'd do the same thing with dash grain because you guys bought my CG course, so I thought why not just go over the dash grain node, because this is basically how we're doing it now in the industry, which is amazing, by the way, because it's way easier than the kind of grain profile stuff I was teaching before. I mean, that stuff's still useful if, for instance, like companies you're at aren't using desk grain for whatever reason, or sometimes they've scanned grain and things, which makes it easier. But if not, just use the dash grain. I'm using this at ILP now, and I've heard they're using it at pretty much every company. Now, just so you know, there are videos online on how to use this thing. So if you search dash grain and go to this one, there's a 1 hour and 20-minute video of how to use it. But generally people that do my courses like the fact that I'm quite quick and get to the point. So if you don't want to watch an hour and 20-minute video, I'll show you how to use it. So what we're going to do is we connect the plate up. So this is the plate from my 2-week course. And so I'm going to connect that to the plate input. Then we've got a degrained plate input here. So I'm going to connect that to a denoise version of the plate. Now, if you were doing a big comp or anything, you would actually connect your comp up into here as well. So we're going to just put like a little color wheel over this. So this is going to be our comp. And let's just connect the comp bit in there. Let's have this a bit neater, like this. Now, what you generally do, by the way, is you just kind of like copy your plate and put it here, basically, so that it's nice and neat to the side. So at the very end of your comp, you've then got this little setup to the side where you've got your denoise plate, which should be rendered out, and then your plate connected in as well, like this. So now we've got our little ball there. So this is our comp, and we want to add the grain back. Now, another thing as well is we're working denoised as well, which is kind of amazing because before that wasn't the case. But most times now people are working denoised. This happened on big Marvel shows as well. So you just work all denoised all the way down. So denoise your plate, render it out, comp over that, so everything's denoised, and then you can add your grain over at the end. Now for the grain, for the dash grain node, to do the grain, what you're going to do is you're going to go to this tab and just hit analyze. Now if you're using the latest dash grain for the new nuke, it might look a bit different, but the buttons are still the same. So you just hit analyze, and what this is going to do is just going to go through and basically just kind of like analyze your grain from one plate to another. And what it's doing is doing a bit of a difference, and then it's working out kind of how the grain is acting in certain areas of luminance and things. So we're just going to let that go. It should do its thing. There we go. So now what we should have, if we go to this isn't grain, by the way, it's just because my graphics card's a piece of shit and I need to get a new one this year. So it's now it's still analyzing there. So what it's going to do again, it's going to make a grain profile for this thing, and then it's then going to apply it to our comp. Now we might want to adjust this, and I'm going to show you how to adjust it afterwards, but generally it does a pretty good job straight off the bat. And in that video that I was showing you about that you can watch, the one on YouTube, they kind of go over the curve stuff. I personally don't touch that, and I don't know many people that do, but again, if you want to learn about kind of this stuff, if I select all these and hit F, you can zoom in and adjust the profile here so that the grain acts differently depending on the values and things. But for now, we're just going to leave it like this. So you can see now we've added the grain back. If I turn this on and off, you can see the grain's there, and this grain will match the original plate exactly. So if I flick through now, you can see there's no difference here. And then if I go to here, it's actually applied the same grain to this area here. So if I go to here and here, you can see we've got some grain applied. Now the problem is with this, as you can see, is we've got this kind of, maybe let's adjust the contrast here. You can see we've got this kind of shape coming in. And that's because when it's done the difference between this, the denoised, and the plate, you can see there's a bit of softening there. Now, number one, I could make my denoise better. That would help that. But if you're still getting this issue where you're getting kind of like, not grain coming through, but actual patterns from your original plate, there's a thing you can do. So what we can do is actually double click the dash grain, go to replace, and hit the activate button. Now, what this is going to do, let me just hit this. So you can see it comes up with this little sampling area here, and we're going to drag this over somewhere that's fairly flat, exactly as you would with a D grain basically. And so what this is going to do is it's actually going to grab the grain from this area and duplicate it all around the image now. And we can actually see how it's duplicating this grain by just hitting the overlay cell pattern. And you can see this cell pattern is basically it's just plastering whatever grain is in this area into these patterns so that you can't see where the edges line up. And we can obviously adjust the size of this if we want. So we could make it so that the pattern's bigger or smaller. And then you've got this kind of edge concealer. I've never really found the need to use this, but if you do, then what it's going to do, it's going to blend between. So it's less of a hard cut here and a nice blend. So let's just undo this because we don't want to see that. And now what you should see is, if I flip between these, we're going to have grain in there. You can see we've got grain, but we now don't have that pattern, as you can see. Now, with that in mind, if I were to drag this to an area like here, what you should see is we now get that pattern we had everywhere. Can you see? Because what it's doing is it's duplicating whatever grain is in that area. So you can see now I've got all these lines everywhere because it's taking the pattern here that it found in the grain and it's duplicating everywhere. So let's drag that back. So that generally does a pretty good job. If you're finding you're getting those patterns through, then check, either try and do a better denoise or do the scatter. Now if you want to check your grain, I'm just going to undo this so you can see we've got that pattern back again. And if you go to normalize grain, this is actually going to show you adapted grain will be based on the luminance value, so normalized grain will just be kind of flat across the whole image. You can now see exactly what's coming through, and you can see, look, this isn't grain. Like, you can see all of this crap here, right? So this is actually the lines and the pattern of our chair. So again, if we now go to activate this, now you can see we just got flat grain, right? Like, and you want to kind of make it so you can't see too many patterns. So you can adjust this a little bit so it's just flat grain, and then you should be good. Maybe this is a bit too much of a repeating pattern, so you could then adjust your cell size and all that kind of fun stuff. But that's basically what I do. That's literally it. And that's what most people do. Like, I mean, pretty much everyone will just do that, right? So it's like, and you can learn the stuff in like 5 minutes. Now, one other thing is, if you can't get a good grain profile from this for whatever reason, via hitting the activate. So if you go to this normalized grain, it just doesn't look very good, the grain, when you're viewing it from on the comp. What you can actually do is you can actually like bring grain from a different image. So let's pretend that you brought in a different plate here. So what I can do actually is I can just do this. So now I'm going to bring the plate, the grain from this plate, and I'm going to hit analyze, and I can just undo the comp. So we're going to put this to the side. So we just got these connected, and we're going to hit analyze here. So now it's just going to analyze just this this one shot. And this is the cool thing about this. So actually there's a hidden input on the side that some people kind of don't know about, and it's super useful. So if you can't get grain from your image, so this is the grain profile we've got from this shot over here, and if we want to apply it to this shot, what we can do is connect the comp in. And then what we're going to do is there's this little input on the side called external grain. We're going to connect that over to this one. And you want this to set to normalize, because your luminance values will be different in this shot compared to the shot we're going to be adding the grain over. So you just connect the external grain, and then all you're going to do is, I believe it's in replace, you just hit use external grain like this. And now if we go back, we're going to do regrain comp, and now you've got the grain from over here on this shot here on this comp. So this is a huge advantage, because what you can do is, if someone's already got a dash grain set up, well, obviously try and do the dash grain for your shot. If it doesn't work, find a shot where the dash grain setup's done, copy it in, and literally just kick out normalized grain from here, and then connect in the external grain here, and you'll be done. Like, it's all set up. And I had this issue on Shang-Chi where I couldn't get decent grain from a plate because it was just lots of details everywhere. And in the end, what we ended up actually doing is we took the grain from a reference video with no one in the scene at all. So I literally just connected that up to this, calculated the grain, and then ran it over my comp. So again, I'm not doing that often, maybe 1 in 20, 30 shots, but it's still useful. Generally what I'm doing is hit and analyze, check in to see if there's any details coming through using that normalized grain feature, and then hitting activate, scatter if needed. So hopefully that helps. Again, Happy New Year. Any questions about this, just drop me an email, jjpark76 at gmail.com, and yeah, keep in touch and let me know how you get on with it.